Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to the Evermore YouTube channel. I am Chris, and I am joined by Mark again this week. He has not dipped out this time. He is back in the chair. And it's Monday night, Mark. We're asking the same question we ask every night, my friend. What's going on? What's going on with you, mate?
Not a lot, but I work tomorrow, which is crap. So there you go.
Shite.
I've got back to work blues today, man. So
oh god, what a nightmare. Well, let's see if we can turn the front upside down, mate, and talk about a few things we're going to go through tonight. Mind you, we'll probably turn it the other way around, given some of the topics we're talking about. But yeah, we're live tonight, guys. So please jump in the comments. We've had a few of you guys already in there. Some of you in very early tonight. I think the Sunderland Middlesbrough game must have bored the crap out of you because you were in the comments quite early. So big shout out to the guys, and we'll bring your comments up as we go along. If you're new to the channel, a little bit of housekeeping before we kick off. Please click that like and subscribe button. We're so close to the 1800 mark. I think we're only about 9 subs away, Mark, aren't we? So smash the button if you haven't, guys. Come and join us. We've got loads of content, 2 weekly shows, this one on Wednesday nights, and then obviously just some pop-up videos as well, you know, previews, post-match reviews, etc. It's all free. We don't charge anybody for any content. You know, we just like to have a bit of crack about the club and obviously have a bit of crack with you guys as well. So let's get stuck in then, Mark. The first topic probably isn't going to make you any happier. It's that dreaded word yet again, the dreaded word that all football fans hate to hear up and down the country. Certainly the last weekend gone, we are going to talk about VAR, mate, aren't we? So, I mean, Jesus H. Christ, your headline there probably just sums it up perfectly well. You know, just before we get into our situation, which was just, this is what we're here to talk about. We're a Newcastle podcast after all. I mean, some of the decisions for the other sides, mate, this weekend is just, honest to God, I thought Stevie Wonder was watching that monitor. I couldn't fucking believe what I was seeing in some cases. It's like schoolboy stuff, isn't it? It's
not rocket science, is it? Let's face it. I mean, look at the decisions this weekend. Van Dijk's tackle on Onana. You've got debatable with the offside as well, but I'm still convinced that Cody was offside in that. But then you go back.
Leeds pen.
You've got Leeds denied a clear penalty. You've got Villa denied potentially a goal for Coutinho being offside when he was clearly onside.
The foul in the Arsenal game as well. Arsenal Man United, the foul was soft as piss in that game as well.
Well, yeah, that for me, I'm not so fussed about that being given as a foul, but it's the consistency with that, because that foul isn't being given at any other time because of this more contact.
West Ham one, that was horrendous. That was nearly as bad as ours. That
West Ham and the Newcastle one, I think they're comparable. They are just awful decisions. How anybody can go away and look at the video of that and come back and go, nah, you need to overturn those. It's just unbelievable. And the Newcastle one was just, I mean, it was an absolute joke. How they've come to the decision that they've looked at it. And what frustrates me is when you look at what they're looking at is that they've not given the full range of angles of what's gone on with the incident. The TV coverage at the time is showing 3 different angles of it, and VAR cover 2. And watching it, I knew what was coming. As soon as they went with the still image at the beginning of Willock in the goalkeeper, I mean, they pretty much morphed together at that point. I knew it was coming. It was just ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous. And it's just, again, I mean, you go back to our previous guys of the Cyro Pass stuff. How many times have we talked about this?
Oh, too many, mate. Too many, but nothing seems to be changing. I mean, it is just worth a note as well. Some of the news that's come out that Lee Mason, who was in charge of VAR and at the centre of the controversy with our goal was disallowed, which we'll talk about in a minute, he has not been selected by the Premier League to do any VAR this weekend or do any of the duties at all either. So that tells you a lot about what they think. They have already came out and said that they think they may have got it wrong. Also, Newcastle United apparently will file an official complaint to the Premier League in order to review after, in our own words, as the club, 2 scandalous and rotten VAR decisions, which is in the Telegraph. I can only imagine, well, take your pick, Mark. You know, we were talking about this before we come on, but the main 2 probably is the Palace one. Let's just spend a little bit of time on this. So, you know, we all know what happened. We'll watch the game, we'll watch the highlights. The cross comes in, the ball's headed across the face of the goal. I think it was Botman that headed it across. Joe Willock's going in for a header, and Mitchell shoves him into the Palace goalkeeper. And he hits the goalkeeper. The goalkeeper hits the deck, hits off Mitchell, goes in the back of the net. 1-0 Newcastle own goal, right? if the goal is disallowed, it's a penalty because he got shoved in the box. He's denying a clear goal scoring opportunity. Is that not the rules? What on earth has happened to the game, mate, when that's not a penalty?
It's absolutely ridiculous, isn't it? And let's come back to the fact that Mason's been dropped from VAR duties. I mean, it says all the fact that he is in VAR, and he's just
a bad referee. He's a poor referee. That's why he's watching the TV screen.
And I think is it Warnock that's kind of gone on and on about this line of there should be this panel of ex-players,
ex-managers, ex-pros. Yeah, absolutely, 100%.
That have been involved in the game, that understand how to play football. I mean, Joe Willock doesn't choose to do a Superman into the goalkeeper. No. He's pushed. There's a reason why he's almost sideways when he gets there. Is because he's got.
I should say it as well. He was a human cannonball. Nothing he could have done about it. Do you know what I mean? Just got launched into the keeper.
And but if he's not pushed, he makes contact with the ball. So it's denying a goal scoring opportunity. It should be a penalty if it's not a goal. But you play the advantage, and you. I mean, I saw somebody say, "Well, you can't give." Was it Dermot Gallagher had said? That the referee took the worst of three options, basically, and the option that he would have gone with was not give the goal but give a penalty. Well, to me, you play the advantage and you let the ball hit the defender and go in, it's a goal. So that's their fault. Then you don't give them the opportunity to save a penalty. Yeah,
this advantage thing just seems to be a distant memory. Just some of the comments coming through. I think Ian said he's met Lee Mason and he's a bit of a twat, which, judging by the way he looks at the TV screen, I can totally believe that, mate. Stu says Shaka Hislop is adamant the ref got the West Ham one correct. Now, that's a prime example of a goalkeeper getting smacked in the head too much, that is, Stu, because that was just one of the worst decisions I've ever seen. I
like Shaka Hislop, but I vehemently disagree with that one. It's just
totally wrong.
What is Bowen supposed to do in that regard?
Exactly.
Mendy's come flying out. He can try and get his foot over him, but what he's not caused any damage. He's barely touched it. It's not like he's gone out and studded him. It's not a foul. It's not a foul.
No, it's horrendous. And Ash is saying there, if you give a penalty, surely you'd have to give a red card to. I'm not sure he would, Ash, because there was players around Mitchell. So it wasn't like a last man type of a thing, was it? So
it would have been because he was a clear goal scoring opportunity. However, double jeopardy sort of comes into it a little bit, in where there is you give the penalty, you book him, but you don't send him off. But it was you could argue it was. You're not sure what contact Willock would have made. Would it have been a completely goal-scoring option? But it was. He would have made contact with it, so the record might have been part two.
To be fair, Joe Willock, I was just going to say the way he's shooting with his slippers on at the minute, he probably would have missed. But I'll give Joe Willock his credit. His post-match interview, he didn't really want to hang on and talk about the penalty too much. He did say that the guys pushed me, so I need to watch it again. But to be fair to Joe Willock, for a young man, he spoke really well. He actually said, we had enough opportunities to kill off this game and we should have done it. And I thought that shows you the mentality of what Eddie Howe has got the guys thinking about. She was just saying there, when the on-field ref was talking with Mason, do you think the Mitchell push was ever mentioned? Just to pick up on this one, Mark, I think it would have been Shu, because the ref gave the decision, Mark, didn't he? He gave the decision as a goal. And then if he's given it as a goal because it's hit and gone in, he must have seen the push. But I think Shearer made a really good point, didn't he, on this? You've got inexperienced referees. I know you've got a stat about this ref. I think you mentioned he's reffed over 200 games or something. But as a relatively inexperienced referee, he's relying on a judgment of his experienced colleagues. And I think there's an element of a respect thing here, like I better not upset them, because he's more experienced than I am and everything else. So this ref has now doubted his initial decision and went with VAR. I think was it Michael Oliver that overruled VAR at the weekend? I think he was one of the only refs to have done it.
And he's our most senior referee, and I'm to be honest with you, I'm a little bit on the fence with that one, because I'm not sure Michael Oliver got it right. But I almost think Michael Oliver took that decision to go, no, we don't all just get overruled all the time. I think Salisbury, it's his third Premier League game. I know she talked about being inexperienced. He's not an inexperienced referee. He has managed 217 games or something in the last.
So he should know better. Years. He should know better than that, really.
However,
by now.
He's never had to use it until this season. But he shouldn't be. He should be strong enough in his convictions to go, do you know what? no, I saw what I saw. Hang on, what was before that? Show me what came before. And this is where the chat has been about. Mic them up. Let's hear the conversation between
100%
the referee and VAR. Going, well, what are you looking at? Show us what we're looking at, because this clears some of this crap up.
I think Toon Review Stato is making a great point there. Great to see you on the comments, mate. But he's totally right. Is it respect or is it fear? In Ian's opinion, it's 100% fear. I think the issues are with these referees is they've almost become quite egotistical. I mean, the Dean machine was the worst of all, wasn't he? What an absolute monumental prick he was. You know, a headline grabbing referee. Webb, to a certain extent, was courted controversy, which he's coming in to replace Dean. You know, he's got a hell of a job on his hands. I don't know whether he's even up to the task or whether he's just a shit in a different suit, really, compared to Mike Dean. But I think the problem is with these referees is that I don't know what it is. That do they want the spotlight, Mark? Do they want the the credence? Do they want to go on Sky Sports and be interviewed and ask for their opinions when they retire? And is that why they're caught in controversy, mate, rather than just refereeing the goddamn game? It just I can't fathom why they're doing what they're doing. I just can't understand it.
I don't think it's that. Maybe Mike Dean had some of that. I think he courted it, didn't he? But a lot of them do shy away from it. They don't want anything to do with the limelight. But they're being let down by their colleagues, and in that regard, that they need to be stronger. And VAR isn't used the way that it should be being used, the way that it should be used. It's all wrong. The decision, what was it? The Brighton game of the weekend took from 4.5 minutes to decide that is it Mbwepu was offside by half a fingernail or something. So McAllister's goal was disallowed. The time that it takes is unbelievable, and they've got access to everything that they need. They're just not good enough to make the decisions. VAR isn't the problem; it's the people operating it that is the problem, and our referees just aren't good enough.
And Stu's bang on the money there as well. The referee on the pitch has got the authority. He must insist on seeing all the angles.
Absolutely.
Mason screwed him over. But that goes back to, I think, Tomb Review's point on the fear factor as well. And he's back in the comments again with a corker. And do you know what? I saw this as well, mate. It is the end of the world as we know it, because we've been defended by the hairy-handed prick himself, Michael Owen and Gabby at Lahore. If those three were in the lift with me, I would climb out and jump down the cables and slide away, mate.
We may as well just end the show now, and that's it. We're just done. Sorry. Yeah.
It could be worse though, as Ash
Alex,
says.
You've done us, mate.
Get Souness in, the four horsemen of the apocalypse right there. Honestly, Jesus Christ. I mean, could you imagine that? This is how bad those decisions have been. That the most anti Newcastle squad, they're like the villainous six, aren't they? Like they're just the most hateful Newcastle United pundits you could possibly find.
Throw in our corner. We've got 5. Christ almighty.
I tell you what, actually, I must say what was funny about Rio. I know we talked about it, I think, on the post-match, didn't we? But Rio Ferdinand was in front of the Newcastle fans at Anfield, and it was so brilliant because Shea Given was one side of him, getting nothing but hero praise. And all you could hear on BT was, Rio Ferdinand, he's a wanker, he's a wanker. And it was the best bit of TV I've seen in a long time. But to be fair to Rio, we did take that quite well. I think he's regretting his decision of backing a certain former owner, I think, mate. But I mean, going back to this whole shit show of VAR, I mean, we are going to write to them. We are going to complain. It kind of fuels, this growing feeling, doesn't it, Mark? We're going to talk about this with the boys on Wednesday, this growing feeling. We have got a poll out already. You can see our socials down there. If you haven't already, vote on the at evermore_NUFC. We've got a poll going around of, is there actually an anti-Newcastle agenda by officials? We've got our feelings in the squad. We're going to talk about it on Wednesday. Let us know what you guys think in the comments, and certainly cast your vote as well on the poll before we go on a Wednesday night. But you can't blame people, Mark, can you, for this growing feeling? I mean, I think you got a little picture to put up that somebody put on social media. It wasn't our picture. I can't remember who put it on to give them the credit, but there's a few incidents in here which I think, are pretty much the last 6 games, Mark, aren't there? Do you want to just pull it up quickly if you can, just to run through it?
Yeah, I mean, I'm wary of this because it includes the time issue against Liverpool. So let's ignore that one. But the other 5 are the previous 5 games, basically. See, I mean, there are 5 game-changing incidents because you've got a game in each one. You've got the goal against Brighton, which could have changed the game. You've got a penalty decision against City that could have changed the outcome. You've got an offside against Liverpool that potentially then changes the outcome. Longstaff being pulled, I mean, it's just the most blatant pull in the world.
Look at the state of it, man.
It's ridiculous. I mean, that anywhere, you go back to what we said at the time, anywhere on the pitch that's a free kick, that's a yellow card. Why is it not a penalty? Why is that not a penalty? That is just, it's embarrassing.
And then the weekend, as we can see at the bottom there, which is just, again.
They're five incidents in 5 games. And even when you go back to was it Kane Hemmings against Tranmere? That was a red card all day long. So that's 6 incidents in 6 games. And it's just, you Absolutely. Can understand why people start to think, is there something? I don't think there is. I don't think there's a conspiracy. I don't think the referees are smart enough to be able to get to carry that out. I certainly don't think the FA is smart enough to carry something like that out.
That's because most of them are about 86 years old now in the FA, aren't they? They probably can't figure out how to do that. But I mean, you can't. We do live in a very distrusting world where everyone's got, paranoia about people out to get them and all that stuff. So you can't blame people for thinking it. But as Ash says there, and Amanda Staveley was bouncing. I did see the interview actually with Eddie on Tyneside Live. Eddie smashing it, to be fair. Good luck to him. He had Sam Fender on the other day as well, and he got Amanda Staveley on, so he's absolutely flying at the minute. But yeah, she was fizzing, Ash. I could see that. She was absolutely raging, and rightly so, mate, because it was just an absolutely horrendous decision. It really was. I don't understand it. And as Mark's just pulled up there on that slide, so many decisions there, Mark, game-changing decisions. We spoke about this earlier. It's okay for the FA and the Premier League to come out and say, oh, yeah, sorry, guys, we got that wrong. I'm so sorry. Doing the Rachel Green style cleavage. I'm so sorry. It's not going to get them teams points, is it? Do you know what I mean? It's not going to get Newcastle United.
We had that episode on yesterday. That is very strange.
Did you pause it? Or did you wait till the wife left
Ben's
the room?
Watching it. She's obsessed with Friends at the moment, so no, definitely
Rachel
not
Green. I'm sure there's loads of people in the comments that are an age to appreciate Rachel Green. But no, my point is what the hell is the point in saying sorry when you're not going to give anybody the point. So I've just seen that comment come up from Ashton. Absolutely. Oh, you just said at the same time. Thanks, mate. I can't. Who can't stop thinking about Jennifer Aniston, mate? Absolutely superb. But what is the point in saying sorry when it's the points that we want? West Ham want that point against Chelsea. We want the 2 points that we've dropped against Palace. You saying sorry is going to do nothing. And then all that'll happen is the next decision will go wrong. Oh, sorry. You'll have a whole season full of sorries, and a team might get relegated. The manager will get sacked. It just people will miss out on Europe. Miss out on winning the Premier League. Sorry isn't good enough, mate. Sorry isn't going to cut it, is it? Let's be honest.
No, I mean you're not going to get points back. You're not going to do anything like that. The decisions aren't. Yes, they're game changing, but then you'd argue that if Newcastle are awarded that goal at the weekend, Palace come out with a different mentality, it could have ended. You go back to the one that's always thrown at Villa is the goal that wasn't given because
the Bournemouth one,
which didn't work for Huddersfield at the weekend. So that's another one where that's happened. So if that goal's given, the game changes because suddenly the team that's now losing has to come out more. So does that? You can't change a result based on that, but. An apology isn't good enough. Not when this keeps happening. Something has to go. Something has to change. Where this is done right. This is done better than it is already. And yes, there are always going to be mistakes that are made, but you have to try and minimize the impact of those mistakes. And they've done nothing. Taking Lee Mason off VAR for a week is not going to do anything. He'll be back on it next week, and he'll be back making the same stupid mistakes again unless something is changed in the background where they do a proper change of how they implement this. And it's so frustrating because the technology is there to help them make these decisions.
Exactly. Listen, it's not a technology, it's the people. If you give a wanker a laser gun, he's still a wanker, but he's got a laser gun. It doesn't matter how good the technology is. They can't operate it. They can't work it. They don't know what they're doing. So take it away from them, get better people in, invest in better people to do it. That's what Howard Webb needs to do, mate. But listen, we could rant about this all night long, which I'm sure we'll rant about it again on Wednesday. But we're gonna have a bit of a shit sandwich here. We've had a bit of a rant. We're gonna have something good and something light-hearted now. So anybody who was at the game at the weekend, obviously anybody who's seen the news, unless you've been living under a rock, we all know Sam Fender is booked to play Newcastle United St James's Park. Absolutely amazing for Sam and the boys. They're all Geordie boys. They're all Geordie black, white, through and through. So it's mint for them, mint for the lads. And at halftime, they had a Johnny Blue Hat, which is a saxophone player, play local hero to the crowd. And it was incredible. The whole crowd just went quiet, listened to this bloke in his blue hat and his shirt from 1999 season or something like that, just blasting out local hero on the saxophone. We know a few boys who are at the game. Unfortunately, me and Mark went at the game, but we know a few boys who were at the game, and they were in the concourse having a beer, and all I could hear was the saxophone because everyone was just dead quiet, almost like it was the national anthem, which it is the national anthem in Newcastle. But I mean, just a little touch on that, Mark. It's just brilliant, isn't it, for Sam Fender and the lads, Geordie boys through and through, man. Just absolutely brilliant, just to see that.
It's about the connection, isn't it? The way through, and there's always something that was missing with previous regime, that things like this would never have happened.
Didn't tap into it, did they? They just didn't tap into it at all.
No,
it was there. It was there for them.
I mean, what? It's yeah. I mean, local hero at the best of times is spine tingling.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So hearing that it's just sensational. I mean, one of my fondest memories was doing when I did the Great North Run, and you put together a playlist of stuff that's on your phone when you're running around, and I came across the Tyne Bridge, and it started off in my headphones, and honestly, I bawled my eyes out running across.
That's an emotional day, though. That is an emotional day. The Great North Run. Yeah.
So hearing that at the best of times has me just goosebumps. It's just brilliant. So to hear that, and you could have heard a pin drop when you walked back, and just there was no noise. There was just saxophone. That was it, and it was just perfect. It's just such a perfect piece of music for the area for that, and it was just brilliant. So I mean, I can't wait for next year. Just that will be epic. I think.
Oh, what a concert that'll be
at home. It just
It'll be massive for him as well, but the whole city will be rocking. The lead up to it as well. The concert itself, people will be hanging out the windows listening to it, I'm sure, while he's smashing the stadium right out of the park. And it'll just be absolutely fantastic. But it was a really, really nice thing to see, a nice thing to hear as well. So hopefully that connection will just continue to grow under this new ownership. And rightly so. So it should be. But a little bit back to obviously what we've been talking about, mate. Eddie Howe came out with this. You were quite surprised when Eddie Howe came out with this because it's not his style. But it probably just shows you how frustrated he was. This whole everyone but Newcastle agenda that seems to be growing in amongst the Premier League clubs. And they did say this a while ago, didn't they? They did say that they would jack the prices up. They wouldn't want to do Newcastle any favours. They wouldn't want to, supply them any players. But it's probably the most unglamorous of names. But the news broke out that was it Maitland-Niles from Arsenal, who was now joined Southampton on loan until the end of the season. He wanted to come to Newcastle. He was, ready to pretty run up to Newcastle by the sound of it. Would have been a really handy player, very versatile, can play, 3 positions, decent, quality player, 5 England caps, 25 years old, great age, ticks all the boxes for Eddie Howe. And Arsenal deliberately stopped him going. Now, this is off the back of the summer with Dean Henderson, with Jesse Lingard as well, in the January window. This whole anti-Newcastle thing, it is quite blatant, Mark, isn't it, at the minute? And for Eddie Howe to come out and say it, I think it's happened on more than one occasion. I would wager it's happened with Maddison as well, and maybe Tielemans as well this window, potentially.
The reports are, yes, Leicester were one, Chelsea have been another. Chelsea decided that, and I almost understand it from that point of view, that they see Newcastle as a rival now.
We should take that as a compliment, but still, it's not good for us in the window. Yeah.
No, and I genuinely thought, given the links between Newcastle and Chelsea now in terms of stability,
business,
it's just that might have mellowed a little bit, but because they see Newcastle as a rival, they're not willing to let players go that route, which is why the likes of Pulisic and stuff weren't coming. It has got more traction. There were some of the stories in the press today about it where there were the likes of Wolves, Villa. I'm a little bit less convinced that was the case when you look at the likes of. I mean, obviously Dendoncker ended up going to Villa. Douglas Luiz wasn't allowed to leave Villa to go to Arsenal, so I'm not so sure that they're on that page. But certainly the Maitland-Niles one is an odd one because he wasn't anywhere near the first team at Arsenal. He wasn't going to come in as a starter at Newcastle. So that one does smack of, well, we're not going to, and I get that this comes back to the point of then teams aren't willing to do us any favours. I felt that was just such a strange phrase to come out with in an interview like that. When you look at it from the outside perspective and go, well, why should anybody do you any favours? But then you look from Newcastle point, well, they'd let players go elsewhere for the same fee, if not for less, or do you know what I mean? The deals are better for some of the other teams. So it's just there's a smack of that, doesn't it? This well, we're going to do deals with anybody, but we won't do it with you, and it just
It's disappointing as well because I mean the whole Dubravka thing. I still can't get my head around the Dubravka thing. I mean, let us know in the comments, guys, what you think about this. But Man United have obviously made it very difficult for us to get a hold of Henderson, get a hold of Lingard, and we've went and allowed them to take our goalkeeper. I mean, Christ, when Pope went down against Liverpool, I just thought, oh my God, here we go. We've let Dubravka go, and he's now knackered. So I hope to God that Pope stays fit for the whole season. But I just don't get it. I mean, Eddie Howe's a very classy character, a very smooth operator. He's obviously got Mad Dog Tyndall in his corner, who's his yang to Eddie's yin, I think, as I think True Faith call him. So shout out to them for that. It's a great nickname for Jason Tyndall. But, Eddie Howe is a classy, articulate character. But why are we making it easy for them to do business with us if they're making it hard to do business? If they want to reciprocate that and let their players come to us, why should we let Dubravka go to Man United? I'd have told them a bollocks. I wouldn't have let Dubravka go anywhere near Manchester United. I
suppose that there's an element of, do you then have a completely unsettled player? If the player's made it completely clear that he wants to be out, then it's not so much doing a deal with Manchester United. You're doing the deal for Dubravka. But I get your point. Yeah, I mean it works both ways. If you're not willing, if they're not willing to do a deal with you, why should you do a deal with them? It's you have to have that going both ways.
Absolutely, good point by Leroy there as well, saying that Maitland-Niles is made to Joe Willock as well. So it would have been an easy move for him as well, and just that's a very strange thing. It sounds like the halt in the progress of the player. I see your point, Ash. We don't stoop to their level. But yeah, just something just sticks in my craw there. And Alex is saying it's high praise that Chelsea and Arsenal won't load to us, especially this early in the project. As fans, I don't think we thought they'd be scared of us as early on. I think that's a great shout, Alex. I really do.
I think the performance at St James's at the end of last season did a lot for Newcastle-Arsenal relations. That's for sure.
I think so. I think so. And I hope he screwed Man United for Dubravka after the shit show in January. Absolutely, Tommy. But I think it is a valid point. I mean, we have come so far in such a short period of time. Obviously, as Newcastle fans, we always want a little bit more, don't we? But I just think that, it's a strange scenario that if Eddie Howe will come out, as you say, it's not his style. So that tells me that he's been getting really pissed off behind the scenes about the way some of the other clubs have been behaving. And for Eddie to come out and break that silence, I just think shows that maybe he thought deals were done and he's gone away and thought, right, I need to plan for this player. I'm going to get Maddison in. Right, I need to shuffle the deck a bit. I'm going to get Tielemans over. And then he's found out from the hierarchy, actually, Leicester have changed the goalpost again. And he's probably thinking, well, that's the fourth time. Like, what the fuck? You know what I mean? And it's not the way to do business. And, and come the end of the season, I mean, Christ, look at Leicester now. At the rock bottom, there's the stories about Rodgers walking. That was two massive sellable assets. They could have sold.
They were absolutely shocking as well at the weekend.
They were dreadful. They were terrible.
They were awful. The fact their players were arguing with each other. They'd stopped running after 60 minutes. It was just shocking, and they are falling apart.
Absolutely. But you saw Maddison sinking to the ground, looking around, thinking, what am I still doing here? Because that was the story that Maddison wanted to leave, wasn't it? And, you look at the project, as Alex rightly says there, we've now got England interest. Southgate's having to come to St James's Park. Beforehand, he got a nosebleed if he came that far north. He didn't want to see Shelvey, didn't want to see Lascelles. And to be fair, it was unfair on those two players because at that time under Rafa, they were both playing out their skin. And they deserved a chance at the England squad over other players. But you look now, Nick Pope's an England regular, he's in. Kieran Trippier's an England regular, he's in. The way Dan Burn plays in his versatility to fill in the left back as well, he's got to be in for a show. Do you know what I mean? Callum Wilson, if he stays fit. There's some real key players here. That could force their way into an England squad. And Maddison was probably thinking to himself, that's the place to be, especially if he got wind of Rodgers getting a bit upset and all that kind of stuff. Do you know what I mean? And just, it's a strange thing. I think as one of the guys said in the comments before, these clubs are blocking their players' careers progressing by acting this way. And all that'll happen, look at Yuri Tillemans is a great example. He's in the last year of his contract. He can go for a free, can't he, in January, or sign a pre-contract with somebody or something.
He start talking in January to clubs in Europe, certainly, and he can have pre-contract stuff agreed. And I think it's probably a bit of, what's the phrase? Cut your nose off to spite your face. Sort of thing. I think there's an issue with that. But come back. We touched on Douglas Luiz before. There was the fact that Newcastle, Liverpool, Arsenal, Atletico Madrid, I think we're all sniffing around. That was Arsenal that put bids in. They wouldn't let him go. He's out of contract next summer as well. So there's a little bit of that there. The players that have wanted to take that step on, and you could have made something for them. I mean, Tillemans would have gone for 25, 30 million easily.
Exactly.
And they run the risk of now getting absolutely nothing for him. And this is a player that they didn't pay a massive amount for. He was highly sought after at the time. He is a very, very good player, and will go on to be great wherever he goes. And they're going to get an out for him. And it's just, that's madness.
I mean, they're going to have to sell him for like 3 million in January when Sam Allardyce wants to bring in Abdul Ufai or somebody like that to fill his position in the Leicester midfield, or whoever they bring in to stay up. But I did see a story about Leicester, just finishing on them. I did see a story that apparently they are going to declare the biggest loss of any Premier League team when they put their books through, which again makes no sense. You've got two players there that you could have got for, a combined 70 million quid in Maddison and Tillemans. I'm stunned that Manchester United didn't go for them too. They went and bought this kid who goes around in a circle, this winger from Ajax, Anthony, who just spins in circles. I can't wait to see Joe Linton go through the back of him, by the way. That'll be poetry in motion, that when he's doing that stupid trick. But they could have had those two Premier League proven players for less than the price to pay for that guy. It just makes no sense. It makes no sense at all.
Just on that subject of Man United as well, isn't it interesting that everybody's sort of batting on about how Ten Hag's come in and revolutionised the squad a little bit?
Yeah, sure.
He spent 200 million to do it, like a whole reinvention of Manchester United, and he's doing such a good job. Eddie Howe spends 200 million across two transfer windows, and it's, where does the money come from? It's all come from Saudi Arabia. It's all oil money.
Yes.
No wonder you're doing better. You've spent all this money. Double standards much?
Well, there is double standards in the media. We spoke about that previously. There's certain journalists in particular who I have now blocked on Twitter, and my timeline is blessed for the reasons who just.
I noticed some of them have disappeared off the Evermore timeline.
Yes, they have done, mate. Yes, they've been blocked, a few of them, mate, because they're just a complete waste of time and space. So we'll move on from those wankers, and we'll hopefully talk about something a bit more positive, ready for the hammers. So, it was pretty clear that we missed the big guns, mate, at the weekend, I thought. As well as we played and as well as we should have killed that game off, in my opinion, Mark, if Bruno is playing, if Maxi's playing, we win that game. I know there was some Twitter police out in force telling you can't say that and how dare you run the lads down and it's shocking and da-da-da-da-da. But nobody was running the lads down. We were just pointing out the blatant, obvious comparison that, Sean Longstaff isn't as good as Bruno Guimaraes, and Brian Fraser doesn't offer as much as Alan Saint-Maximin, so that's okay to say that, everybody. You're not going to get judged on this channel, that's for damn sure. But I think against West Ham, mate, we're hoping we're going to have at least Bruno back. Maxi's in some weird Michael Jackson oxygen tent, sucking back. I hope it's oxygen. You don't know what Maxi could be sucking anything in that canister there, mate. He's a bit of a loose cannon, isn't he? But let's hope we have these two back. But if they do, mate, they're going to make a big difference, aren't they?
They do. I mean, let's go back to the Palace game. It's a little. I guess it's possibly a little harsh to look at it. You've created 23 shots in the game. Six of those shots on target. There was plenty of opportunities to score. The goalkeeper had a blinder. You've obviously had one disallowed ridiculously.
Sorry, that's fantastic. Ash, I still don't even know what that is, mate. I really don't, honestly. What is Helios? I just haven't got a clue. Sorry, Mark, go on.
No, so I just think with the others in the side, there's a lot more of a potentially clinical nature to the way that the attacking side goes. You're going to get more out of Maxi. You then get more from midfield out of as well as Sean Longstaff has played. You're going to get more. Of
course, you are.
Consistency in that out of Bruno. If you've got Wilson, you've got the option to then play both him and Isak or one take over from the other. Yeah. So you've got the ability to move around. It's difficult. It really is, because I genuinely do agree with you. I think if you've got those two players on the pitch, you win that game easily. You probably take some of those chances because they're a little bit more. What's the word? Clear-cut chances, I guess, rather than some of the more half chances that were there. They become a little bit more clear.
They wouldn't snatch at them, I don't think. Bruno wouldn't snatch at some of the chances. Maxi wouldn't snatch at some of the chances. I mean, congrats to Maxi, by the way, for winning goal of the month for his volley against Wolves. Absolutely superb, that. So I
mean, that's a no-brainer.
Yeah, it's got to be. You never know these days the way football's going, mate. But I mean, we're going to talk about it a little bit more on Wednesday and really get stuck into it in a lot of detail. Hopefully, Mark's stat computer might have fired up as well. We'll have some stats for it. But there is also the exciting element potentially of having Elliot Anderson either in the front three or the midfield three. Just briefly touching on that, Mark, as well. Someone like Bruno slipping them passes through to Isak and someone like Anderson with his running. I mean, that could cause West Ham a lot of trouble because they can be got at the back. They're not watertight at the back. They've been open this season so far, West Ham.
They have made mistakes at the back. They didn't start particularly well. They have looked better the last couple of games. Not brilliant, but they've looked better. But they're still open. They still concede the ball. They'll still concede chances. So I do think I know those talk about maybe Anderson playing in that midfield three. I don't think that would be right. I think you need to have him further forward.
I think he'll push him up. That's where he's brought him on, isn't he? He's brought him on as a front three. He hasn't brought him on in midfield.
He needs, I think, a little bit more freedom to be able to play with his own ability to be able to create chances and not be rigid in that sort of midfield three. I know you want to touch on at some point, over the next week or so, probably talking about Joe Willock, and I think you lose a lot of Joe Willock in the job that he's being asked to do. He's doing the job very well, but you lose a lot of his natural ability going forward by playing a deeper role. I think if you restrict Anderson in that, you're going to lose a little bit, a lot of what he's good at. He looked very good at the weekend when he came on, and he's pushing. I think he's pushing for a start.
As Ash says there, absolutely. And I think Eddie Howe has been. He's managed them very well, hasn't he? He's tried to dampen the expectations of the crowd. It's that local hero syndrome. But again, we'll get stuck into more about Wednesday. But when a local boy, he went to our school, didn't he? We went to Whitley High School, so big shout out to Whitley Bay High School. But he went there, and he's when you get a player from the area who you just feel that connection to them more, don't you? You want them to do better. Same with the Longstaffs. We all want the Longstaffs to be better players than sadly what they've become right now, especially Matty with that goal against Man U and the way he burst onto the scene and everything else. And Anderson just seems to have something special about him compared to these players. I mean, he went to Bristol and he grabbed it by the balls and he come back I've got a work colleague who's a Bristol Rovers fan. They loved him down there. The Geordie Maradona, they called him. And he went there a boy and he come back a man. He looks like he's filled out. He's very hard to knock off the ball. And I'm so excited about what he can do. And I think he could potentially, again, we'll not get into too much because it's Wednesday's show, but he could potentially save us some money that we should have spent the transfer window that these clubs were being awkward about. This could give Anderson a chance, Mark, don't you think, to step up and be that player that we didn't buy?
It could, and I do. I can't remember who it was that I heard as well that was talking about Anderson's introduction into this and not being just thrown into the game straight away. A little bit, I guess, almost like Bruno-esque. He's being brought in gradually to make an effect, build his confidence as he comes in and has an effect on the game for the 20 minutes, 25 minutes that he's brought in. And he's coming into the game at a time when players are starting to drop off because they've played 65, 70 minutes. So they're getting leggy in those games. So he can come on and have a massive, massive impact at that point. That's probably the right way to go for now, and especially against the likes of Palace and West Ham, who can be a lot more physical too. But you're right, Anderson he looks a completely different animal to sort of play the player from 12 months ago, where he looks like he's built. He's not knocked off the ball as possibly as easily he might have been a year or so ago. He looks ready. Absolutely looks ready.
Absolutely does.
He has to be knocking on the door now for that spot. And if Maxi's not fit, I'd want to see him in one of those positions, either wide left or wide, but where he can let him move either way and swap over and be able to attack from both sides, because he has that X factor, doesn't he? That quality that you can't teach. Yeah. He just brings a natural ability to it.
Yeah, I think Alex is saying exactly the same as you. He played more left wing for Bristol Rovers, and I think as well, Alex, I watched a lot of him because me and my work colleague used to talk a lot about it. And what I loved about him when he was there, he would cut inside and he would he'd be at the back post for headers. He scored that famous 7th goal that got them up, didn't he? By doing that, and he would cut inside, and he would have a shot. He would. He'd play balls across the box. But what I love about him so far, and we'll get the lads' opinion on this on Wednesday as well, so tune in for that, guys, at 7. But what I love about him so far is he doesn't waste the ball. Everything he seems to do, it's a good pass. It's a shot. It's a win and a free kick. Every time he's on the ball, he doesn't seem to waste that possession. Whereas with Miggy, you can't always say that. And with Fraser, he looks rusty as well. Jacob Murphy, don't get me started on him. I really hope the Wizard of Oz gives him a brain one day, because if he does, he'd be a very talented footballer. But he just runs around. He's a little bit like my cat chasing the laser pointer. I try to get it to stop being naughty. That's what Jacob, somebody somewhere in the ground has a laser pointer. Jacob Murphy is just running after this laser pointer. Exactly. The grin machine. But yeah, just, we need a player like this. And I think Anderson could be the man. I'm so excited about what he can do, Mark. I've never been as excited about a youngster, realistically, since Andy Carroll Mark 1. That's what I'm going to say about Anderson. That was the last young player that I thought, wow, this kid could really do something in this team. So let's hope we're right, mate. Let's hope he lives up to that potential.
Well, I hope he has a better outcome than Andy Carroll did eventually.
Well,
yeah.
But
he was all right in the end. He did very well, but he's properly tailed off in the end.
If Carroll stayed, though, I still think if Carroll stayed, he would have got over 100 goals for Newcastle. I really do. I think he would have stayed and smashed in 100 goals for Newcastle if Carroll had stayed. But he plays on the edge, doesn't he? He gets injured all of the time. We've got a couple there. I'm just going to pull it up. I clicked the wrong button there. Murphy is running after a laser pointer that doesn't even have batteries in. I don't even think he knows what he's doing, Alex. I get some stick, don't I, in the comments for I was having a go at Murphy by some people. But, listen, he seems like a lovely bloke, and he's a Newcastle fan, right, through and through. But you wouldn't go and get Fat Barry from the Strawberry to play right wing, would you, who's a Newcastle fan and a lovely lad? So it was, why are we bringing on this guy who offers nothing?
Poor Barry.
Off the bench. I mean, Barry used to be able to cross a good ball back in the day before he done his knee in Faliraki. But no, I just think that I don't know where I was going with that one.
Specific.
I was going to say I didn't push him. I promise you. No, but just with Murphy, I mean, but Murphy's your quintessential championship player, really. Barry, the taxi driver from Wallsend. It is the one and the same, Ash, one and the same. But he's not in the comments though. He must be on duty. But yeah, I mean, just you look at players like, I mean, I love Matt Ritchie as well. There was some news actually about Matt Ritchie earlier on. I think everybody saw it, that he's talking about taking his coaching badges and stuff. And I would love to have a fly on the wall if Matt Ritchie becomes a manager, because he's a lunatic. Could you imagine him at a halftime talk, Matt Ritchie? My God, someone get a teacup off their head. It'd be like Mike Bassett. Remember England are playing 4-4-2. That'd be like Matt Ritchie, I think. He'd just be absolutely crackers.
I think definitely. I think if you can keep somebody like that is in a coaching capacity, I think that'd be brilliant. He's not going to play very much now at all, but he brings that experience with him. He's very much liked by everybody, isn't he? I'm not sure you'll find anybody that doesn't like him, but he's got that sort of air around him and he looks like he will be a good coach. He's very switched on. He's very clever, and that's what you want out of that. And hopefully that will translate into a coach.
Absolutely. Just another comment there on Murphy. So Alex is saying he used to love Murphy and what he could offer in moments, but he's always lacked that bit of quality, which he does. Sometimes he turns up, he's just lost something recently at the moment. Do you know what I think it is, Alex? And I'll get your opinion on this, Mark, see if you agree with us. I think because the quality of the squad is greatly improved, I think Murphy just looks worse because he's surrounded by better players. And, not even just the attacking players, Kieran Trippier, Botman, Bruno as well, even Matty Target, like their touch, their movement, their passing, the way they position themselves on the park, it just makes Murphy stand out even more as what the fuck's he doing? It's just one of them, isn't it? I think, mate. He's very much of a time for Newcastle, wasn't he? And he looked okay in the Bruce setup where everybody was kind of on a level. Now there are those better players come through. He just doesn't fit. He will work hard. He always has. He always will. He just doesn't have the quality now to be able to kind of translate to the team that's there around him now. No, I think you're right. That's a fair comment by Leroy as well. I think Andy Carroll didn't have the passion for football. You can tell Anderson has. Carroll actually had to Google who Gerrard was. I hope he didn't. I really hope he didn't, mate. Steven Gerrard scored about 95 goals past Newcastle at St James's Park, so I really hope he didn't have to Google him. But I think the big problem with Carroll, Mark, I remember at the time, used to hear loads of stories. I think actually when Carroll scored that hat-trick against Villa, was it the opening game of the season, or was it the first home game of the season? We beat them 6-0, didn't we? And Carroll scored the hat-trick. And somebody told me, I think they were there or they knew somebody was there, whatever. But Carroll went out that night and got absolutely shit-faced to the point where he had to get physically escorted out of Bijou in the town, mortal drunk. And you could tell the doorman probably didn't want to hurt him because he just scored a hat-trick. They were obviously quite happy that he'd done that,
Can't blame the lad. I think we'd have all done the same thing, to be fair.
Fair enough, but he was always on the wrong side of the tracks a bit, Carroll, wasn't he? I think in terms of his kind of behaviour and stuff. He seems to have mellowed out a lot now, but I think the biggest problem Carroll had as well, even a little bit with Stevie Taylor here as well. They used to go in for stupid tackles, and I just think it shortened their careers because of the injuries that they got.
But you've got the tackles and stuff like that, especially with somebody like Taylor throwing themselves into things that you're just not going to win. You're always going to come off at some point. Something's going to go drastically wrong, and it does. And defenders that do that, especially, it's always going to happen. And a striker that isn't used to tackling, trying to throw themselves into things, you end up in completely unnatural positions and things snap, which I know all about. So
very true, mate. Mark used to have his own wing at Rake Lane Hospital, if anyone doesn't realise that. The amount of injuries this man got in football. Oh my God, honestly. Every time we turned around, he was hurt.
I still think the X-ray department is named after us, to be fair.
I think the Farrington Suite, yes, mate. I think you're right, pal. But yeah, but no, it's. I mean, we've just got to see if we can put this right against West Ham. I mean, West Ham will be pissed off as well, after what they've been through against Chelsea. So it should be an interesting game, and I think the scrutiny will be on the referees and the VAR in that game massively, and it could go one way or the other. The game could be refereed superbly, or it could just be completely mental and whistle happy. Free kicks galore, all sorts of stuff. Every time somebody complains, they might get a decision, so we just don't know. But I think somebody made an interesting comment before, and I'll bring this up. Paqueta versus Bruno, if that's going to be on the cards. I mean, this whole Paqueta fantasy, isn't it? We talked about this. I don't think we ever really wanted to sign Paqueta, did we? I just think it was almost a transfer rumor created by, as Ash said, it was a transfer rumor created by the fan base, all completely in our heads, wasn't it? Really, it was never really going to happen. I don't think Newcastle ever wanted this guy, did it?
I think there might have been interest there, but I'm not sure it was ever as serious as some people believed that it was. Yeah. Maybe it was, maybe it wasn't. It might be another one of those that looked at a decent price, and then they were asked to pay more. I don't know.
Who's to blame for ITKs? Are they to blame for it? Fueling the fire, saying that they just saw him getting fish and chips in heaven, or his kids are fucking registered in the school, or he's in the Metro Centre having a pasty. Are they to blame, mate? Or,
well, to be fair, I mean, yeah, but if you take any of them seriously, I think you need your own head check-in, to be honest with you, because you've got to look at it and go, well, if the ITKs had anything, that Newcastle would have signed 573 players this summer.
Very true.
And none of them came. I mean, even look at the stuff that we did. We always said, look, we're just reporting what's in media and stuff, and looking at the players that have been reported. And even then, I think we were close to 70 different players that we covered.
Players.
And none of them signed. So it was just, I mean, it really rubs me up the wrong way.
Instead, you'd be watching that Rachel Green video again, mate. Rubs you off. Easy now. Come on, bring it back.
Good job this isn't a family show. But where did they get off with some of this? And I know they're looking for their 15 minutes of fame and stuff with it.
Yeah, they want the subs and the clicks and the likes, don't they?
Where do you get off? You putting this out? Yes, such and such a sign, such and such a sign. They're in. So and so has come for a medical, or the medical's been booked for next week, or they're on a plane coming to the northeast. No, they're not. And if they were, you wouldn't find out about it. And if you did find out about it, you would be by somebody that you wouldn't betray the trust of. It's just not going to happen.
I mean, I'd love to hear the guys in the comments if whoever's still with us hasn't gone to bed yet. Just what's your take on ITK? Would you say ITKs are here to stay, or do you wish they would go away? I'm very interested about this. I mean, there's some guys that do ITKs. We know some of them personally. They're decent lads. You know what I mean? And they seem to be adamant that they're getting sources that are on the money, but it's such a dangerous game to play. I mean, we mentioned this before, within the Evermore squad, we just laughing at Alex's comment there. Superb. He's done a Jose Mourinho on me there. He prefers not to speak. But I just think that with the ITKs, it's such a dangerous game to play, isn't it? We've got some guys within the Evermore squad who have got good contacts, and there's people within the club. And we have heard a couple of things in our little chat rooms and stuff, but we don't share it, Mark, do we? Because just drop me a earpiece there. We don't share it because it could just backfire on you massively, couldn't it?
I just wouldn't. At the end of the day, I wouldn't want to betray the trust of the person that you're talking to. And yeah, it's great to be in the know. It's great to have the stat on people. But if you then put that out, you don't get anything else out of them. Because if you betray that trust, and especially with some people, you're not going to have them talk to you again about anything. So why? I'm squarely off the fence with this. I can't stand it. Stand it being, because it does build up players into the chat about, yes, these players are definitely coming. Then they don't, and everybody's downhearted and go, well, what are the club doing? Why weren't they doing this one? They were never talking to them in the first place. It boils my piss, basically.
It does. It whips you up. I think Ash is on the money with you, mate. But yeah, it's a very interesting topic to have. As ITK, the polite phrases say pathological liars. It's funny because I think some of them are worse than others. I think because they're adamant that they're right and everybody's wrong. And even if somebody was to physically tweet them and say like Lucas Paqueta, if somebody tweeted them and said, no, he's not signing. Why do you know? How do you know? I'm his fucking agent. That's why I know. They would still think that guy was a liar, and they would tell that guy he's a liar, which is just, it's weird. It's a funny thing because fan-led media is massive. It's growing and growing. And we look at us here. We weren't doing this, 8, 9, 10 months ago, and now we're doing it now, and we've got you lovely people in the comments. Fan-led media is something that we all want more of. And we love to have the content. We love to listen to fans talk about the club. There's some unbelievable Newcastle United podcasts out at the moment, and it's absolutely brilliant content for Newcastle fans. But there does come a time where if you haven't got anything really to put out there, don't just put something out for putting out sake, and make something up just to get people's tongues wagging. It's a weird thing. We could talk about it all bloody night. We could have a special on it, I think, mate, really. But it's an interesting one. We might actually be doing a post-transfer window show, hopefully with a journalist, a friend of mine, that we're trying to get tied up. And I might put the question to him, actually, Mark, and just say, what do the journalists make of the ITK guys? Do they love it because it fuels the speculation and the stories and gives them more to write about, or is it something that they think get in the way? But it's a very interesting topic, I think, for another day, mate. Absolutely. But I think that's us pretty much wrapped up for this evening, guys. So thank you so much to everybody for the comments. It always helps the channel flow. We really appreciate it. As I mentioned at the start, if you haven't already, please smash the button. Come and join us on the Evermore show. We'll be back with an ITK special next week. I'm only joking. I was just waiting to see what Mark was going to say that. But no, we're back, obviously, with the Evermore show live at 7 o'clock on Wednesdays. And I'm sure we'll be doing some match previews and post-match reviews as well as the week goes on. Keep it Evermore, guys. Let's keep supporting that team of Core United. And me and Mark will catch you on Wednesday. See you later.
See you guys.